Turn this motherfucker up, man.
I love you, but be so for real. The algorithm knows when you're searching for God. It knows when you're searching for leadership and advice, and it has a sales pitch ready for you to join any type of organization or cult that's going to benefit the people who are showing it to you. Before we get into our episode with a cult survivor and escapee, like, subscribe, follow to I Love You But Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And today's guest, Coach Wade. Do you want to go by Coach Wade or do you want to go by Therna? Like, what you want to go by? Wifey?
I can go by Therna. That's fine.
Okay, so our girl Therna here, she is a recent cult survivor and escapee, and I don't use escapee lightly. It was really an escape. A wife, excuse my little dog, a wife, a mom of 6 beautiful kids, and founder of Coach Wade LLC, where she helps mothers and women in general who may be overwhelmed build systems and find their purpose outside of motherhood. Thank you for agreeing to talk. How are you today?
I am doing well. The day already has kicked off with so much to do and so much going on, but I'm not complaining. It's all part of the journey. So I'm doing awesome. I'm honored to be here, to be able to speak with you. What you're doing is so powerful and so needed in the community at large. And so I'm just excited to be here.
Yes. Okay, so I found you doing a deep dive, speaking of social media, on people who've either been like cult survivors or helped people out of high control situations, but I have never spoken to someone who's either done it or been in one that was a mother. And that's what really captured me about your story was not only are you a mother, you're a mother of 6 kids. So how, I guess if we start from the beginning of when you first joined, how were you, do you feel like, how were you targeted? Were you the one who reached out to the organization? How did that happen?
Awesome. Wonderful. So, well, in the beginning, of course, I was actually 8 months pregnant with our son. My husband and I at the time we were kind of like not church hopping anymore, because we kind of like were purpose driven in a way that we really wanted to be the hands and feet of Christ. And we started seeing that churches were kind of more garnering their own interest and not necessarily really about Jesus, so to speak. And so we kind of were like falling back off of the church scene, but we were doing our own studies into the Bible, looking behind the words in the concordance, and really taking a look at the Hebrew and the Greek origin of the words in the Bible. And so that's what kicked it off. And then we started kind of my husband, really at the time he was my fiance, but I thought he was like looking into videos on YouTube, and he took a particular interest in the Israelites at large, again because we were already looking into the Hebrew, and we came upon like a translation of the Bible, like the Hallelujah scriptures, where it's like Hebrew led. And so you're reading the understanding through not King James Version, but the original intent of how the Bible was written. And so that's what kicked it off. Ironically, one of his old college football mates is who recommended him to the pastor in Kansas City, Missouri, and was like, hey, this guy is a coach. He's coaching me, but he talks about the same Hebrew stuff that you talk about. You should come see him. And then that's kind of one thing led to another. We went and saw him at the gym. And then a few days later, we were at his house, and then we kind of were talking to them, see what they were about.
So I noticed when I started doing research after you told me, I know we talked previously and you told me, okay, it's Straitway Truth Ministries. So I started doing research to be prepared. And I noticed there's this kind of like athlete to in this group pipeline.
Yeah.
what do you think is, I noticed the pattern of, in general, like targeting the man and kind of breaking the family down,
Mhm.
starting with that piece of the family dynamic. But what do you think made athletes so susceptible to these teachings and being so convicted? Like, why were they kind of the focal point of this cult?
Yeah, and so it's even highly discussed within like some of the, I would say, preachings or like the discourses that they have there, is that it's easier for people who come from a militant kind of background. So it's athletes, it's former military, it's the Air Force, Marine Corps, like people who are used to someone telling them that what they don't want to hear in a harsh tone that is ultimately going to build them up. And so the athlete to cult leader pipeline is that it's like it's very much preached by the head pastors. Oh, we know you don't want to hear this, but this is for your soul salvation. This is what you need to hear in this generation, because the generation is soft, the generation is hard of hearing. So you need that cutthroat preaching, or you need that harsh tone, or though I be rude in speech and not in knowledge, like you need the hardness in order to soften your heart, or to really have you receive Christ in this way that's been jaded before. Like you're coming into the truth and the knowledge and understanding of the truth. So, athletes, they get coaches talking to them greasy all day, but it's really so that they'll become stronger and switch. There's a switch that goes off in their brain, like I need to tap into a different mindset. Well, it's amplified when it comes to spirituality in your soul and salvation. Now salvation, instead of it being more Christ-like, it's militant. It's like an army mindset. Like you're literally going through like a hazing of some sort in order to attain a rite of passage, which Christ never did it that way. So
That's crazy, because I didn't think about it like that. It's like people who are already kind of trained to do things without questioning because of whatever organization they're in, whether it be athletics or the military or whatever. You're kind of
mhm,
trained to be like, you have to do this. You don't really have the option to ask questions because of this organization. So then when you start getting into spirituality, you're like, well, I really can't question because this is from the word of God. And I'm already kind of trained to listen to someone else to understand what's best for me,
mhm,
without questioning. Because I think for me, I was never an athlete. But I'm like big on respect. So I'll be
yeah,
like, if I respect you and I know like you have this many years in whatever industry or you have this experience, I will listen, but I'm going to ask you why I'm listening. I'm going to be like, okay, I hear you, but
exactly.
I just want to understand so that like I can do this and execute this the best that I can, more than
Mhm.
just from listening. But if I had been an athlete, maybe I wouldn't have had that same like thinking or like thought pattern, because
Yeah.
I always had to listen to my coach regardless. I always had to listen to the sergeant regardless.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
I
why
want
would I do
I
that?
want to say this really quickly too, is that there's like a heavy contrast that is made, constantly comparing to other pastors and Christianity and such, is
Mhm.
that the soft nature of other pastors, right? Like the soft, like there's a infatuation of being like this hard pressed, like I said, militant. I mean, even the head pastor, Charles Dow, is former military, and so he brings that presence of like commanding attention, commanding presence, commanding, and it's just in his overall essence, not necessarily that he walks around telling people on a day-to-day basis, but very much when he walks into the room, now that there's a security entourage, like, so
Mhm.
athletes, of course, their whole masculinity is wrapped around their athletic performance and heeding other men's strength. Like real men follow strength, that's what's echoed all the time. So when you see somebody who was either a former athlete or former military, and they have embodied masculinity, and you can kind of contrast the femininity of men in the Christian church, well then there's that also, that the solidarity of, well, in order to be a masculine godly man, I need to follow masculine godly men who have this dogmatic, this like, you know what I mean, as opposed to just Christ manifesting himself in other people and their personalities being different. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to
Mhm.
highlight that as well.
And I think that's an important thing to note too, because something that I've noticed with even like professional athletes is they get all this training on how to be the best at the sport, but there's no
Yes.
support on like life support in general. Like if you came from a underprivileged background, how do you
Mm-hmm.
manage money? How do you interact with people now that you have money? And like to protect yourself, how do you have a family? How do you
Yeah.
balance it? There's no support on that, but you're taking like an 18, 19-year-old and then like putting him in the spotlight,
Mm-hmm.
her in the spotlight, and then being like, yeah, we don't have any tools. So I think if I was an athlete, I would be like, I need something to also tell me how to do the rest of life. Like I love my sport, but where's my guidance on like you were engaged and he knew that he wanted to be a good husband, a good
Yeah.
provider for you in whatever way that you needed, but there was no guidance on that. The only guidance was this is how you be good at football, you know? So
Yeah.
I think it's easy for them to want to search for something beyond
Mm-hmm.
athletics in guidance because it's just not there. Like I know they have NIL deals and stuff now, but
Yeah.
like that's just
Mm-hmm.
money. It doesn't tell you money is nothing if you don't have any skills or knowledge or role models on what to do with it. Um so yeah, I think that like really hits home the point of like why this particular group would be so vulnerable. And then the piece of like they start, especially with this one and a lot of ones that are starting online, they start with the man and then
Yeah.
it seems like they kind of demonize the woman already ahead of time so that if
Mm-hmm.
you start to be like, huh, honey, like something, this was great at first, but now something doesn't feel right. They're already trained to be like, nope, that's the devil talking. Can you talk more about that and what your experience, like what you saw and like your experience was in that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'll say again is that men are looking for masculine leaders or what they perceive to be well-rounded masculine leaders. And so a lot of these men, when they come upon videos such as these, it's prepper videos or ammunition. If stuff hits the fan, how do you prepare? Like those male-centric and male-dominated spaces that are very much about survival, food prepping, military training, if America breaks out into martial law, so things of that nature, like it's circling in that sphere. And then kind of once you get into it, you start listening, then you fall into the spiritual side of things with being the head of your household, not being a simp, um, how to keep your house in order, how to keep your woman in check, things of that nature. So these men are going from one extreme in terms of um overall life related topics and things to directly into, okay, this is how it translates in my household. So they'll get the woman on board like, hey honey, come hear this, or the woman will be in the background like, what are you listening to? Like, this sounds very much oppressive and such. So there's like already a divide because the man is listening and it's like, oh, I align with this because this is what masculinity is supposed to mean or supposed to be. And then the woman is like, oh, hold on, because we set our own vows and some of these are crossing some of those lines. For me, we met one of the pastors here in the region of Kansas City, and it wasn't because we were listening to particularly Straitway's content. Like, we found that pastor and then come to find out he was one of the leaders that were under the hub of Straitway, so to speak. So again, former athlete himself, and a coach, personal training coach. So my husband already naturally is like, like we have things in common. Do you see what I mean? So it's easy to come up under someone like that in their wing, despite me being uncomfortable. Like, these people are kind of off-putting. I don't know. Some of the men here, when we finally did get to go fellowship, just creepy, because we women lean heavily on feeling and emotion. We read the room, we discern, whereas men are looking more structurally, okay, there's structure, there's fruit, there's tangibility, there's ABC. We're looking at what isn't spoken, but what is felt. So it was very off-putting to me those first several times. I'm like, I don't really feel comfortable. It's a little too pushy. And he's like, man, these are the people of God. Like, look what they have going on. They're reading the book, no excuses. Like, if I have a question, it's the Hebrew perspective, it's the way the Bible was written. And so already, a little bit of discord between him and myself in that.
And in that, I want to point out, we're in calling out the differences between men and women. It's like, that's why we're supposed to be in partnership, because
Right.
we balance each other out. And I know also you had spoken about how the gender roles were very traditional and expanded upon within the cult. But it's like, at first it may sound rational, because everything you just said about men versus women, as far as how we function differently, these things are true. It's not bad. It's not sexist. We're not we're not saying women aren't great. We're not saying men aren't great. We're just saying we're different, because we're supposed to, in the world as society, balance each other out.
Right.
But then what were some of the gender roles that they were enforcing that became toxic in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the very beginning, my husband and I were like two peas in a pod, like you couldn't separate us. Like, if he was going somewhere, I was going. Like, we had a dynamic of always around each other unless he was at work, you know what I mean? Or unless I was at work at the time, because I was working. So we were already going through a bunch of life changes, like I said, like newly married, baby on the way, like literally I'm about to be due. And so when we got there, we were invited to come stay with a couple, and it started being like kind of hinted at that, okay, Dante, when he goes places, he needs to be more alone, and he needs to have me stay at the house so that I can start participating in the cooking and the clean, like the roles of whatever said sister had already going on. And so it was almost like already like tearing apart what we had going on, because like we spent a lot of time together. We hung out all the time. Like, we made sure that we prioritized us. And so now it's kind of these subtle, oh, brother, you need to have your wife stay at home so she could start doing the at home things and be taught by the sisters doing things at home. And you need to make sure you working. And then, one thing led to another. Now, when he does come home, and I'm like excited to see my husband so we can kick it or go on a drive or something, now there's a brother who's kind of like, hey, bro, can I talk to you outside? And like, now, like, he's trying to kind of take my husband under his wing and like spend all this time together. And I'm just like, I miss my man. Like, you know what I mean? It started to be very much like pulling you guys apart through roles and through, well, he can't just be sitting up under his woman, and you need to be busy. You need to stay busy as a woman, because an idle mind is a devil's playground. So starting to tear apart at the fabrics of whoever's relationship is how it is already, with inserting, hey, you guys need to be separate because you have things to do as a man. You have things to do as a woman, and it's not being together, so to speak. So the psychology behind even a relationship starts to get chiseled at as soon as you get there.
But they're saying, they frame it as in they're making your family stronger.
You stronger as a man and you stronger as a woman, which ultimately is more pleasing to God. It's never really outright spoken, this is what is going to be beneficial to your family. It's heavily, this is how you please the Most High Yah. A man's being a man's man, a woman is being in her role, serving the husband, being submissive, keeping of the family, and then ultimately you two as individuals are serving Christ.
So what, I guess, because you said like it started off with like an interest in like the Hebrew and Israelites. And the only thing I know about is like the Israelite people that they call Hoteps. That's the only thing I know about. And how does the Hebrew and Israelite, how does that connect to your religion? Like to that, when you were in that, like, what does that mean? why do you even know where the Hotep name came from? I don't even know where it came from. Like, I would just like some education on that, to be honest.
To be 100% honest, I'm not sure why there's like a Hotep lingering comparison with them. What I do know is that the Hebrew Israelite community in 2025 is almost identical to Christian denominations. Like, you'll have different Hebrew communities that all kind of vary in doctrine. For example, I would say Straitway is almost equivalent to a non-denominational Hebrew community, because they're not racist. A lot of the Hebrew Israelite communities are very much African American or Caribbean or indigenous American centered, where it's like white people are literally the devil. And then there's other Hebrew communities where it's more messianic, where it's like a hidden racism towards Black people because Black people can't really be a part of the lost tribes of Israel. Straightway was more so, I would say, closer to the book in terms of it's not just exclusive to a race of today or a nationality of today. Very much, if you're baptized by the Holy Spirit, if you accept Christ as your savior, and if you're, if you have signs following that you are a believer, then there's no discriminating you based off of your color, creed, gender, nationality. So I'm assuming the hoteps that you're talking about are the people that stand on the corner and like have the microphones and are preaching, and they have all the colors and they kind of look like Power Rangers. I know sometimes people call them Power Rangers too.
Yeah, them. And they're like, we're the original Israelites.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
their approach is different. I would say how it kicks off for a lot of people, and mind you, this has been for decades. I mean, I know I think Ben Ami or something in the 70s was really popular, where there's like a Israelite group that were primarily African American. They changed their names and they actually went over to Israel and started living, and they established communities there. So this isn't new in the slightest. It's just that when you look at Deuteronomy 28 and the curses that were prophesied over how Israel was going to be scattered and the immense tragedy of God's people, it's like that's where we're like, okay, this has to be African Americans. This has to be people of color, primarily as the lost hidden bloodline tribes of Israel, because we're at the bottom. I know it's kind of hush hush to talk about the Jews, but the state of Israel was established in the 40s. And so if you're coming together and you're being an established nation in the 40s and you guys are on top of the world, how is it that you're the scattered lost tribe of Israel? So that's where the idea comes from in terms of who's the original Israelite or the descendants of the Israelites today, based on the curses that God said were going to be on his people in the last times.
Interesting. Okay, so it comes from this one Bible verse of like really just trying to identify like who is God saying his people are.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. And it's like almost like it's like an obsession. I didn't know this context before, but in my head I was like, there's an obsession with like being the original Israelites. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really understand why, because from my perspective, I'm like, well, number one, we're all originally made in God's image. But then number two, it's like really should just be up to how you execute your life on earth, whether you're like, you're going to be, I'm not God, right? So how can I decide who is really the real Israelite if I'm real Israel? Also, I feel like it don't matter. Like it doesn't matter if you've executed your life in a way that is living the word of God and what to the best of your ability, because all of us have gotten something wrong at some point. We're not God. So we don't know. I might think that being a nice person to my dog is going to do it, and I might be wrong. I might not have been supposed to have a dog in my house. I know like certain Muslims don't believe in having dogs. I might have been wrong and they might have been right. Who knows? But if we're all doing it in the best of our ability, I feel like it don't really matter what your origin is outside of you learning more about your ancestry and epigenetics and all that type of stuff. Like, it's cool, but I don't think it matters as far as getting into any type of kingdom or whatever happens after we die that none of us can be 100% sure about, because we're all here. So yeah.
And then I'd say even in leaving, because we've been out for about a year now to date, that for some people, I would say it might be an obsession. For the vast majority, it's more so, it starts off really 100%, at least for me. I want to make sure that I'm all in with serving Christ. I don't want to leave no
Right.
table unturned, because the Bible is very much direct. Even in the New Testament, without all these sacrifices and without all the plagues and curses on Israel and things, it's very much you have to be deemed holy and acceptable unto the Most High. And so that's where it started for me. Even as a teenager, I'm like, okay, it says all of these things in the Bible. How is the church lacking in power if we're believers? Or how is it that we both go to the same church and fellowship, and you can view holy as this and you come and have dressed, and I could view holy as this and I'm coming a little bit more modest? How are we so on the opposite side of the spectrum as believers if we're holding this same Bible up and all stating that we believe in this? So that's kind of where it starts. Like, okay, well, I want to make sure I'm locked in with Jesus no matter what. And then for a lot of people, again, whether or not the law is done away with, the law of sin and death versus the dietary laws and the statutes and commandments, whether or not we're supposed to be keeping the biblical feast days versus the pagan holidays that have all come into play. So everybody's kind of, I would say, I think everybody's, it's more so of an anxiety more than an obsession. Like you're so desperate to want to make sure that you're pleasing God. Maybe there's a hidden I don't want to go to hell in there for some people, and it creates this anxiety that then turns into a persona of having to do everything 100% right. And in your mind, you almost turn God into this brutal, I can't wait to kill you type of figure, as opposed to the all loving, merciful being that he is. You know what I mean? So everybody's on a different side of the spectrum in terms of that. I think really it starts off for a lot of people, maybe as an anxiety. I know for me, I loved Jesus and I'm like, I want to serve Jesus. If it says it in the Bible, why am I not doing it? So,
And I feel like, to that point, when I think about it, I've talked with all women for this
mhm.
season on cults, and I do think it is the anxiety for women. But then when you look at what's broadcasted with any type of like Israelite thing, it's
Mhm.
men speaking, because we know
Yeah.
why. It's men speaking, and the men are like, it's almost like this chase to make sure that they're valued. They want to make
Mhm.
sure that they are seen as important and worthy, and it's like almost like this underlying chase for worthiness and importance.
Yes.
Whereas,
Mhm.
to your point, when I actually have conversations with women, it's always the anxiety of wanting to do things right, wanting to get life right, wanting
Mhm.
to take care of their family in whatever way, even if it's not motherhood, like their relationship, their parents, wanting to
Yeah.
please others in a way of like, I don't want to disappoint my mom, or I don't want to
Yeah.
disappoint my dad that I was born into this religion of, like those types of things. So I think the underlying thing, kind of, now that we're kind of talking it out, I'm like, it is kind of different for men and for women sometimes. And I'm not saying
Mhm.
that men don't ever have anxiety, but the ones at least that are at the forefront of certain movements, it really is like calling at like, this is what's going to make you worthy or masculine or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. It's more like underlying ego driven with like a
Yes.
hint of God.
Yes. Exactly.
Mhm.
There you go. Underlying ego driven with a hint of God, because there's too much wrapped into it. And I would say preaching, in terms of the preaching of it, there was much that I learned and there was much growth that I did. I grew a lot. I can't take away from that. I did see a lot of people healed and delivered from spirits. I did see a lot of people who had debilitating chronic diseases be made whole and be well. I saw that. I'm a witness and a testimony. I could say I've seen that. And to be quite honest with you, Straitway labels themselves as a deliverance ministry, and I've seen much deliverance there. That's really not the issue in terms of if we just keep it on the Bible. What happens is when in your day-to-day lives now, people are using the positions that they claim they've gotten from the Bible to then oppress everyone in their day-to-day lives. That's where it's night and day. I'm never going to dispute Christ. I'm never going to dispute the Bible and the signs and the wonders or anything like that. What I'm going to dispute is people taking advantage of others and doing things that were never expressed or intent driven in the Bible. Christ never intended for us to be living on top of each other like this. And all the husbands have to have their hand out to the leaders after they've given them all their money in order to feed their families properly. And I have to ask you and you have to approve my request for something that I need, or even if I want it. That's not in the Bible. It's nowhere in there. But because you're the pastor and because God called you or chose you, now you get to do make these insane mandates and have everyone follow suit, or you'll be publicly rebuked, or you'll be ostracized, or you'll kind of be singled out as the brother who can't get with the program. That's not biblical.
And it's not helping anybody.
No.
It's not meant for healing.
Right.
And I think so many things, especially in religions, turn from it was good. There was good things happen. Like, I think for especially people, Black people who we've gone through chattel slavery, it's like what kept us is our faith.
Yeah.
What keeps us now in the times that we're in. And I'm sure for like immigrants right now feeling the same thing, what a lot of them is keeping them is their faith. Like that's literally all some of us have. So I will never deny like the power of having like faith and community. But to the point, it's like then when a leader turns that into oppression, it's like, well, that's what I was trying to escape.
Exactly.
We were all supposed to be trying to escape together.
Yeah.
And now you're using the tools of the oppressor to oppress me.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it's like always the oppressed becomes the oppressor in so many situations. And I feel like a lot of times it's like it be the men. Because women, it's like we end up following certain things because, like you said, of anxiety of just trying to do the right thing. But then it's like the men, it's like that ego piece that like now they're going to take those tools that led them to be oppressed. And they started off with like the faith and like, okay, we're community building, we're helping ourselves, we're getting our families on a good foot. And then they're like, okay, now I'm going to do the same thing that I saw done to me. And I think part of it is like unconscious almost, like I don't think they all realize what they're doing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because you fall in love with the idea, you fall in love with the message. I mean, you fall in love with what the goal is supposed to be. If the end goal, like you said, is we're oppressed in this society, if it's by and large, even though there's a government established, but only a certain demographics of people really with money, it's beyond race at this point. If you have the money, you can move mountains. But if we know that and we see that, and then we're coming together in order to amass resources so our lives and our children's children can live free in a society where things are readily available, where you can go to the doctor and not be discriminated against, or you can have a baby in a hospital or our own clinic where there's people of color who are doctors and they're not going to leave you for dead on a birthing table. Like, if all of this is what we're buying into, why is it then that there's no checks and balances in place? Why do you now again use the Bible? You get to use the Bible now to say, God put me in this position of authority over you and nobody's here to check me. And God is the one who sent you here. Why are you questioning me? That's where, I'm sorry, that's literally the defining moment of now you've become a cult. Despite how your good intentions may have started 20, 30 years ago, if nobody can check you, or if you can't be held accountable, there it is. If you can't be held accountable to anyone, and if somebody does try to hold you accountable, now they've become the figurehead of public scorn. Then, I mean, even Christ said that if there's an issue with an elder or the leader, that 2 witnesses have to come to you and let you know, and then you have to go before the assembly in order for the assembly to decide what your fate is supposed to be. And if you don't hear it out, then you're supposed to be gone. We're supposed to send you out. Now that's red letter. That's Jesus's mouth saying it. But then
I didn't
people
know
get to, yeah, it's Matthew 18, I believe, where if you have an issue with someone, brother to brother, you take that to them. If they don't hear you out, you say it before a witness. If they still don't hear you out, you put it before the assembly. If they don't hear you out, you're supposed to be gone. You're supposed to have your own time out. You can't be in here anymore until you come to.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get to not do that? And Jesus himself said that. So there's an agenda to continue to maintain power then, and not really be leaning towards Christ together, common believers. Now it's an agenda. Now it's power and authority. And now, again, going back to the athletes, now that you have big name athletes like Kabir Bajabiamila, like Daniel Muir, like Robert Mathis, these people who have played in the NFL to fund and expedite and further cement your authority. Now we're getting all the way off of Christ. Now it's literally a kingdom on earth that you've established, and it's your own. It's not the kingdom of heaven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And on top of that, I know that there's funding to kind of keep people ingratiated, but you spoke about there's a push to like have a lot of kids, but then there's not any trained midwives. There's not like a universal healthcare system that you guys have on your own. How did that work with, like, if you got sick, if one of your kids got sick, giving birth, like, how did that whole process work being in a closed community, living with multiple families?
Yeah, beautiful. So, two parts to this. One is we all still, I'm not going to speak for everyone. There were several extremes. There were some sisters who, again, because of their husband's diehard belief and allegiance to the head pastor, some people didn't go to the doctor at all. Some people just left it up to other sisters who've had children or have just learned and read several books or whatever, but not like certified midwives, like you just said, kind of leaned on their wisdom in order to like help mitigate whatever common problems would occur during pregnancy. Other people were a little bit more, I'll say, liberal, where they did go to their doctor's appointments. They got the insurance, Medicare or whatever, and then they would go to their normal visits. I was one of those. I was going to my visits. Now, when it comes to actually having the children, it is greatly championed to have them at home in this ministry. Greatly championed, and it's subtly frowned upon to even go to the hospital. And I'll say psychologically, there's a number that is done on people in their minds because of that very thing. It's never outright said, don't you dare go to the hospital and have no baby. What it said is our women don't have to go to the hospital because the Most High Yah is with us. And just like the women in Exodus, when those midwives came, we already had our babies swiftly. We don't have complications. And if you do have complications, it's because X, Y, Z. Do you see what I mean? So now in the mind of a woman, it's like, oh my God, God is going to be with me, which he is. He's with you wherever you go, if you're in the hospital or if you're at home or if you're in a birthing center. But now there's a pressure, or you're comparing yourself to a wicked woman if you're having complications during your pregnancy, or if your labor is prolonged, or whatever the case is. But I mean, if children get sick, we do the natural remedies. A lot of us made tinctures and herbal teas and herbal syrups. I would say in that regard, in Kansas City, where we were, there weren't a lot of children going to the doctor for debilitating illnesses. People aren't commonly like sickly like that. It's normally like the older people who come in and join if they've already had pre-existing conditions. But in terms of children being ill and hospitalized on a frequent basis, fortunately, all glory to God, I don't know of any where we were who had that. Now, hospital visits or mishaps or things like that, of course, every once in a while things might happen. Again, where we were in Kansas City, nobody was just outright going to the hospital for breaking a bone. Common children things like I fell out the tree because I was climbing the tree, or climbing monkey bars and I fell, fractured my wrist. Things weren't happening of that nature. But no, we didn't have a universal healthcare system anyway, even though it's being preached, to get out of the system. We don't have one. We didn't have one. Ask me if there was a clinic fund and a clinic building that was being built. No. All these lands are being built, and they're building people's houses and utility sheds in the tabernacle, which is a church building on whichever community or property. But those are the things where you start asking questions and asking about the allocation of the funds. You're getting told immediately to hush. That's not your place. It's the affairs of the elders. And then two, that we need to focus on things down here and be content with holding down our position with where we are, and that things will fall into place, and the people who are responsible for doing that will do that. And so you're kind of just living life every day, hoping and praying, please God, don't let nothing happen to us to where we're in a situation where we have to go to the hospital, because quiet is kept. A lot of children are not documented. And with the climate of this government, need I say more? With deportation and you know what I mean? So very much living life risky and not having anything in place to substitute the systems that we're supposed to be coming out of. Okay, I'm sorry, my baby walked in.
Oh, it's okay. So then there's no like universal health care, and then you were saying that you work, but you're working towards this group pot, and then you get an allowance outside of that. So it's determined by the elders, and how do they figure out like how much money you're gonna get, and do they give it for the month? What's the whole process for getting your money?
Awesome. So I'm glad you said that. On the exit is where we found out that the entire ministry wasn't on the same page with how they did that. Where we were in Kansas City, and specifically with our family, once my husband stopped driving trucks and kind of listened to the pastor and to go back to work at the gym for him, he wasn't getting outright paid for that. And so in that, he was getting a monthly allowance, which it could be every month for 3 months consecutively, and then a month skip. So it was all about when the pastor remembered and if there were funds at the time to be able to give to our family. At that point in time, I had 3 children. I just had our 3rd child, and it was me and my husband. So a family of 5. And we were living out in the city, an hour away from the pastor and that property, because we had to be close to work the gym, because my husband was the operations manager for the pastor. And our role at the time, or my husband's role, was to help people get ready to live on the community. So there were city saints, which were people who were like on the fence about living communal or close to and on or around the community. And there were people who lived on the property with the pastors and the elders or what have you. At that time, we were living there. The pastor sent us back to the city, but we're under this one pot system, but my husband's not getting paid. So that's where the mess is in our situation. Some families, their husbands, of course, were going to work, and then he would take care of his household expenses first, and then whatever is left, he would give it over and submit it to whatever elder was in his particular region, or pastor or leadership. Some families, if they live directly on the community, like in Tennessee, Straitway's hub, the men will go to work. And then sometimes it works that way where you take care of your expenses first. Other times you'll give your money and your check to the pastor or the elders, and then you kind of write on a slip all of your expenses for the month, and you kind of itemize that. And then at the end, like let's say it's like a $600 for diapers, wipes, toothbrushes, toothpaste, a few more articles of clothing for the month and what have you, then you submit it back and then they'll give it back to you, something like that. But it's not the same everywhere. And I think even that's done on purpose, really, so that if people like me speak out saying, yeah, this is how we lived and it was horrible, all the head pastor has to do is get on his broadcast on Friday and be like, hey, did you live like that? Is that how I do things here? So where do they get this from? You see what I mean?
They can invalidate you.
It invalidates it when everybody has a different experience. You see what I mean? But yeah, in our case, it was horrible because my husband never received a paycheck, and he's going to work the first several years from 4 a.m. and getting out at 8 p.m. and then turns around and goes and drives Uber for 4 more hours till midnight. So he's spent. and still has to go drive Uber to make a little bit of extra money so that we have something on a day-to-day basis because we have babies. You see what I mean? So that
Yeah.
pot that we're giving into is supposed to be so that the community can purchase land, can purchase building materials, resources, food storage, so that if stuff hits the fan, we can't go to the grocery store. Everybody has their own food storage set to the side. But things were so sloppy in Missouri that, I mean, where's everything to show for all that's been put in?
Mm-hmm. And you
And-
didn't know, like, basically there wasn't any like tracking. There wasn't like a monthly report of we've gotten
No,
$5,000 and
no,
10, like, okay. So it was just
no.
like, I'm gonna give it to you and I'm leaving it up to you because I have no other, like, that's what we're supposed. Well, you're not even, in your case, you guys weren't even giving it. You just weren't getting anything.
We just weren't getting anything, and we're just getting allowance. And it started off between $100 to $300 a month in the very beginning. Towards the end, when I was pregnant with our fifth and sixth child, it was hitting upwards toward the $1,000 a month. But that $1,000, again, we were being bounced around. So 2021, 2022, when we did start getting the $1,000, that money went to paying rent.
Yeah.
That literally went to rent. And then the brothers that we were living with paid for the expenses and groceries and things like that. So, I mean, it's messy in that sense. It's like there's no ledger, there's no account, there's no official. Okay, we're creating the banking system first. Since we're dealing with so many people's money, why not create your own independent banking system so that everybody's funds, everybody has their own account? And let's say, hey, in 5 years, maybe I don't agree with the doctrine anymore. I get to have a maybe 80% of the funds that I put in removed, or 50%. Or if you started building on my house, we have a contract between us, like, you're gonna build my house, you're gonna finish, but when I'm on this land, I don't have to live according to everything because there's some things that I just don't agree with in your doctrine anymore. No, you leave with nothing.
And speak to, like, because you were under that much financial control at this point, when you and your husband decided, like, we have to get out of this, what was that process like?
It was grueling. All of 2024 was just observing how much the pastor there, and not the head pastor, this is the pastor of Missouri. Again, there's several pastors, but in Missouri, how much the ball was being dropped in terms of our family. He couldn't remember anything. He couldn't remember that he said this or didn't say this. He couldn't remember that essentially he dismantled the rideshare business that my husband and a few other brothers had started to generate more income with these rental cars. Didn't remember that. Like, so he was really moving sloppily to the point where now he's like, oh, well, you need to be totally responsible for yourself and your family's expenses a month and a half before I'm due to have the baby. And now you're taking away allowance. You're banning my husband from working at the gym in his role after he's trained up other people to now be at the gym. So now that he's expendable, you replace him. And now somehow, with what? Driving Uber, that we're supposed to generate $5,000 a month to be able to take care of our family's expenses, pay for some of the bills in the home fellowship that we're living with, and then have money left over to kick back to the community and land 5 hours away. Where, when, how, what? Like, that just put us in a hole. So we didn't really have anything. And that was what, August? We left in October. That's like back to school time. So we were buying things to get our children ready for school. We were buying things to get me ready for having the baby. Like, we didn't have any money. And my husband's driving Uber. So there's only so much money that you can get from that. In leaving, we did have to reach out and ask some of the people who had left prior to, hey, we're thinking about leaving. We don't have anything to our name. Obviously, my husband's been working for this pastor for so long, not getting a paycheck. So it's not like we saved 5 months worth of paychecks because we were anticipating leaving. No, all the decisions got made within a few weeks. So, I mean, within those same few weeks is when we decided to leave. Fortunately, one of the leaders who had left prior to, some of them had put together and gave us, I think, a total of $1,400 to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And we drove down to Florida. So from Kansas to Florida, or Missouri to Florida, with a family of 7 with a baby on the way. And we left on my due date. I was 40 weeks when we left. So, I mean, it was hard. It was hard. And we couldn't even rent the car. We had to then ask the pastor to rent the car for us, because in order to have a rental car, you need a credit card. Well, in order to have a credit card, you need a line of credit,
Mm-hmm.
which neither of us had. So, oh man, I mean,
Because
the
you were
reality.
taught not to do things in the system way. So you weren't supposed to have a credit card. You weren't supposed to have those things when you were in the organization.
Well, because it's get out of debt. So
Um,
when you're getting out of debt, essentially, I mean, you have to have debt to get out of. But the whole system, or the idea behind having credit cards, is having a percentage of debt that you're constantly paying out on, which boosts your credit score. But when you don't have any debt, and because I didn't have a job, so I don't have no stream of income. I have no trace. I virtually didn't exist for 10 years in the system. Like, I have zero. My credit score was hyphen hyphen.
oh my goodness.
Hyphen, hyphen, not even 0, not 100, hyphen, hyphen, nothing. So
Wow.
can't get a credit card. Yeah.
In the US, credit is so important. That's a whole rabbit hole I could go down. But like, I learned that when I was in school, because like I
Yeah.
was like, how are you saying I can't get a loan to pay for school? Like, because my mom didn't have good credit, so she couldn't
Hmm.
do it. Like, they were denying her at the time. So I'm like, how are you saying I can't get a loan? Like, I didn't do anything. I did not
Yeah.
pay. And they're like, well, you don't have a line. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, I don't like, what did I do? I didn't do anything wrong. But in this country, it's like credit is so important.
Hmm.
You're not taught that. Like,
No.
you're taught, like, okay, manage your money, budget, and all that. But I'm like, you need credit in this country at a young age to
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
live honest. I don't know, to live. You need it. Even if you're not like using it to buy something like bags and clothes, it's like you need it to get a house. You
Yeah.
need, like, you need it for just so many things, and
To
I
get
don't
a car.
about that enough here. I mean, it's on purpose, because it's gonna, if the less we know about that in general, the less we'll achieve. So
Exactly.
we're not supposed to know about that. But yeah, I think it kind of speaks to that, just even in your experiences. Okay, you've made the brave decision to leave a high control situation, but then it's
Hmm.
like you're rebuilding back, and it's like you've kind of lost time before because you weren't building your credit before.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
weren't not building it, but you weren't building it. And like, that stuff takes time. In your, now that you guys have been out for almost a year, you said, right? Like about a year now.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Um, what have been your key pillars of rebuilding your family, yourself, your marriage, your life? Like, what has that looked like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, the grief is coming in waves still. Because we've had to really sit down and like pause everything and reassess and regather, what is our normal going to be. um Nobody who is there is allowed to speak with us. A lot of people have blocked me, a lot of people have unfriended me. And so there's no community in that sense anymore. I'm still a believer. I still believe in Christ. So, but there's nobody around to really fellowship with like that. And so that's one aspect of it. Internally in the home, we've had to spend a vast majority of our time kind of reaffirming and paying so much attention and pouring into our children, because when you're born in a situation like that, all of your friends are there. TT this, uncle this, pastor this, elder this, that's all you know. Um, Even more than your biological family. So a lot of it has been spent, doing things with them, activities with them, paying attention to them, of course, homeschooling, going on walks with them, being very much more intentional, about their mental health and well-being, and trying to keep things as normal as possible and as familiar as possible with them, so it's not just like a mental shock every day to them, like trauma. um I would say the marriage part is taking the most work, again, because we were so heavily entrenched, and pretty much the start of our marriage was there. And was so heavily entrenched in gender roles, and man being this person in this way and that's it, women being this way and this person and that's it. So having to team together and fuse into a partnership so that we can both get things done for our children and our families, that's been the part that's really under heavily construction, I would say.
Mhm.
I've had to get a job. I've had to start working, of course, to be able to catch up. Um, but I think the main thing that's anchored my husband and myself as two individuals is the fact that we believe in the same core principles of being able to help people. And so that's where the business kind of came into play. We were talking about this in college. He loves helping people. I love helping people. And so that's kind of what's made life still purposeful is, hey, now that we've got a couple of lumps under our belt, also, we can help people from this experience as well, helping families, helping men and women be in sync with each other, helping children grow and develop so that families across America can return to being families, and we can improve the society and build a community that is well functioning, and with individual people coming together and families being families again and made whole, healing the family aspect of the nation. So that's kind of our purpose. That's our drive. That's what makes every day worth living and pushing forward and keeping going. Because honestly, I mean, everything these last 10 years is enough to kind of sink into a wormhole of depression, to be 100% honest with you, because we have 6 kids and we're starting all the way over. And it's not like I have I was a career woman with a high paying degree that I could just, oh yeah, call my job back and then now I can get my job back and I'm making $100,000. No, I had to start from all the way at the bottom. My husband, we started all the way at the bottom. So it's easy to I mean, I had a horrible week this week, just mentally, like just grieving everything and sitting and like, this is hard. I mean, it's the first of the month, rent is due again, and just everything that comes with it. And it's still business as usual at Straitway. People are still joining. People are still not batting an eye or not losing sleep over the fact that they're screwing families over, and that this is the reality when you leave. Like, even that hurts, because you spent so much time forsaking your biological family who would die for you, who would do anything for you. You adopt this new family because it's your spiritual family, and we're all supposed to be in this together, yet nobody's checking in and making sure I'm alive and well, because my life is supposed to be in shambles. That's part of my judgment from God for leaving.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if it to sum it up, I hope I've answered your question, but the business is really helping. I have put myself out there on social media in micro form on TikTok, on Instagram, because I do want to help mothers. That's a passion of mine. I do want to help people with children. I love children. I homeschool my children. I help them. I help other children read. I help other children develop writing skills to become great writers and do arithmetic at a higher level. I mean, we need that in America. That's community. That's being there for your fellow person. That's being a neighbor again. You know what I mean? So if nothing else, helping others is what's helping heal my mind right now.
Mhm. I mean, it's just so powerful to hear. I mean, the strength that you've had to have as a family unit
Mm-hmm.
to recover from something like that, where it was multiple forms of control, like mental, spiritual, financial forms of control, and then
Yeah.
having to also help your kids grieve and grow and learn from a situation that they were born into. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I personally am like someone who loves to feel a sense of justice. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with that. So the fact that, like, to your point, like, there's still people joining and they don't realize that they may be getting taken advantage of, that they may lose everything, and if they try
Yeah.
to change their mind, this is what they're going to be met with. Like, I can't imagine, like, how that would feel. But knowing that you can help people, I feel that is the way that you can keep moving forward.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Sorry.
No,
My
you're,
2-year-old was in the back having a field day singing, babe. I'm like,
oh,
girl,
I love that. And then I guess what would you say to any women who feel like, or even men who are
Mhm.
like, hey, I've either seen my partner start to go down this path of watching YouTube videos, hearing some of these things, and I see positive things coming from it, or whatever. What would you say to them to make sure that any community they're joining stays healthy, and like what signs to look out for? And how can you, if your partner is more ingratiated in it than you, how can you support them and show that you actually are doing what you think is best for your family without alienating them?
Ooh, great questions. To the first question, I would say if there's anyone out there, and their family members or loved ones or friends even are kind of showing signs and leaning towards um a cult or an organization that starts off as like, wooing them, so to speak, I would say just be a pillar of support. Because the more, especially when people are joining things that are new and that are intriguing them, they're going to feel like they've come upon something that's a revelation that nobody else either knows about or has ever lived. And so they're going to be excited to share it with you. And when you don't match, or when you're kind of like downing them about it, they're just going to kind of pull away from you because they're being trained on your response. They're being trained to view you as not being a fellow enlightened person. So just kind of be a pillar of support. You don't have to fake it and be like, oh my God, how exciting. I can't wait to join too. But I would say encourage said individual to ask the leaders if they can, or ask people the hard hitting questions. What does this mean for my family? What is the 5-year plan? Where do you guys aim to be in 5 years? Where do you see me in 5 years? Should I start fellowshipping with you all? Ask those hard hitting adult questions right off the bat. If you get responses like, brother or sister, you're not here to reinvent the wheel. We've been doing this for 30, 40 years. You just come and fall in line and serve. Okay, that's not the place for you. That, in a nutshell, means you do what I say, I move goalposts, you follow me regardless. Don't get sucked into that. So another thing to look out for, if even you find yourself, listening to people and it's intriguing, man, they're making a difference, they're making an impact, and they're saying that they've been established for the last 30 to 40 years. Look at what their children are. Where are their children who are supposed to be in their 30s and 40s now? If you don't see any sign of their children, if their children aren't right there leading the way and then being ready to transition and pass the baton on to their child, that's a red flag in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because even at Straitway, the people that are still there, the few people that are still there that were there when they were in their mid-20s and they had children, none of their children are there. None of their children live on these communities now. None of their children are elders or pastors. None.
Mm-mm.
Where are the children? Why did they escape? Why did they get away? Let that be the number one telltale sign. All these new ministries that are popping up, whether it's an Israelite community, whether it's a messianic, whether it's a new Christian denomination, and they're all about everybody getting out of the system together, ask for where their children are. Where are their adult children? Where are their siblings? Where are their parents? If it's just them and they felt like they were the person in this generation that God spoke to, no, sir. No, ma'am. That is not your people. That is not your tribe. That is not your family. No, absolutely not. If you have a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend or a fiance that is leaning towards something like this, I would say don't be in a position of giving any kind of ultimatum, because they're being trained for you be giving them an ultimatum, and somehow that's their pass go of going in the right direction. Be gracious, be as patient with them as possible, and have open dialogues. Don't come from a standpoint of, oh my God, don't fear monger them. Just ask questions. Okay, what does this mean for us? in the next 5 years? What does this mean for us in 10 years? How can we grow here? What does this mean for our children? Things like that, in a nutshell. If you can truly prosper there and thrive the way you want to prosper and thrive, according to what God has created you and placed in you as your individual purpose, then hey, just keep your eyes open. But if the first thing you have to give up in dying to yourself and crucifying the flesh is who your God-given or what your God-given assignment is, that is not the place for you.
I couldn't have said it better. This is really good advice. I feel like, I hope even if just one person who had this question hears it, they hear it, because it's powerful. And I often struggle as someone who is very like straight to the point. I love you, but let's be real. I struggle to kind of balance that line of like, I don't want to push you away, because I struggle with the language and how to do it, like how you just articulated. Sometimes I say nothing in certain situations because I'm like, I don't know. I know that if I come on too harsh, you're gonna, like you said, it's gonna come off like, okay, I'm being trained to not listen to you anyway, so I'm not gonna listen. But then it's like, saying nothing is not the right solution either. So this is helpful just in, if I ever meet someone who I feel like is in a situation, to kind of know how to just ask certain questions and help guide them to make their own, I don't know, like decisions and their own conclusions without alienating them. Where can people find you on social media if they want to work with you, or if they just want to hear more about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am most frequently on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is Mrs. Coach Wade. That's MRSCOACHWADE. I am on TikTok as Diary of a Mom of Six. And I'm also on Facebook but my name on Facebook is Therna C Wade. I also right now, of course, am co-founder of Coach Wade LLC. So if you did want to reach out and email us regarding any type of family support, academic support for the kiddos, mom routines, systems, a mommy support person, a mom friend, or if you're a father and you need some structure in the household, or you need to make sure that you keep up on either your own mental health and wellness as the head and the leader of your family, you can email us any kind of inquiry at Coach Wade at Way Ahead Coachings with an S at the end at wayheadcoachings.com. I'm sorry. Coach Wade at wayaheadcoachings.com.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and letting me kind of be part of your healing process and journey, and sharing and to help spread your mission of caring and helping others find actual community, be within their faith without being controlled. I really feel honored that you allowed me to share this story with you.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Keep up the great work. I'm going to continue to watch and be a part of everything that you have going on with the series. It's exciting, and I'm loving everything that you're doing, because it does shine a light on the unspoken group of women who really need their voices heard. So I appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Like, subscribe, follow, and the details for Coach Wade's information will be in the description.